Yeah, no replacement for Scott yet. What is this award? I believe they do. I've heard rumors as well.
Oh, you
I
have.
heard they picked somebody, but he does it twice.
That's the council.
You're so bad.
We haven't seen the half of
All right.
Okay.
Now we get to.
There we go.
There we go. Did you say the pledge last time?
Hi, everybody.
Was it you or
It was me.
it was you? Okay. All right. So welcome. This is, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Planning Commission regular meeting, Thursday, April 20th, 2023. And I'd like to call this to order. May I have a roll call?
Of course. Commissioner Boswell,
Here.
Commissioner Godick,
Here.
Commissioner Hazelton,
Here.
Commissioner Hensley is absent, Commissioner Lamb,
Here.
and Chair Geddes.
I am here. Commissioner Godick,
Yes.
would you honor us by leading us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
Happy to.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. I'd like, do I have a motion to approve the order of agenda? Do we have any changes to that? Do I have a motion to approve the order of agenda?
Motion to approve the order of the agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those say, it's unanimous. So, we have our consent calendar, and these are business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing, or those pulled for discussion. And commission members may request that any consent calendar items be removed, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section, and those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion. I will call on anyone wishing to address the commission on any consent calendar item on the agenda which has not been pulled by the commission for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes. Do we have anyone who comments or questions or wants to speak on any consent calendar item?
Oh, I'm sorry. No one on Zoom, and just for the record, there is one e-comment on item F2.
Oh, okay, so that's on an agenda item. Oh, on F2. Oh, okay. Do we read those, or is that a?
You can. I think it's only city council that they made the determination on for their meetings that they wouldn't read them out loud. But if you want to have that.
Okay, yeah, I think we'd like to hear.
Yeah, of course. So the one comment is from Mark Nelson. As I have commented in writing to the council as well, I am concerned that a simple search of the agenda packet does not reveal any written public comments. Please assure that all written comments are included in the agenda packet in order to assure that they are in the public record of the meeting. And that concludes the comment.
All right, thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar items?
Motion to approve the consent calendar items.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. All right.
I think we skipped over the blue folder, and when there were 2 blue folder items that come in, so you just need to receive them.
Oh, right, yeah. Do I have a motion to receive and file the blue folder?
Motion to receive and file the blue folder items.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. It carries unanimously. All right, our next section is public participation on non-agenda items, and this section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. The section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Written requests, if any, will be considered first. Do we have written
Yes.
requests?
No Zoom attendees, but we do have one e-comment.
Okay.
This comment is submitted by Mark Nelson. I am very concerned about the lack of a revised draft of the RDGs. The public's primary concerns of neighborhood and character compatibility are absent from the current draft, and that is unacceptable based on the stated concerns of the public. The draft states, quote, "One important goal is to provide straightforward criteria that reflect the community's interest in maintaining neighborhood character, so new or renovated residential buildings are compatible with established development," end quote. However, the draft fails. In cases where character consistency is protected in the existing RDGs, the draft ignores those protections. As a specific example, no protections remain for all new multifamily developments should be compatible with the character of the neighborhood. The public is not protected in the current draft, and a revised version that includes public protections or leaves the current language in place where it is not quantified must be circulated for comment. And that concludes the comment.
All right. Do we have anybody here who has a comment on a non-agenda item that they would like to present? All right. So I think we can close that. Next section is ex parte communication. This section is to allow all officials the opportunity to reveal any disclosure or ex parte communication about the following public hearings. Commissioner Boswell, let's start with you.
And this is for everything we're going to discuss tonight, right?
Everything.
Okay, so I spoke with Commissioner Gaddis and members of the public.
All right. Commissioner Good.
I've spoken with members of the public only.
Okay. Commissioner Hazeltine.
Mayor Bill Brand, Councilman Zane Obaji, and Commissioner Sheila Lamb and the public.
Commissioner Lamb.
I spoke with Councilmember Narenheim, Commissioner Hazeltine.
Hot time.
Both of them?
Both of them. I did.
Teen and time.
Mr. Gardia, Mr. Smoody, and the public, members of the public.
All right. And I spoke with Commissioner Boswell, Councilmember Lowenstein, Councilmember Obaji, Mayor Brand, staff, and members of the public. All right. So we have our first public hearing, J1. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. This is a public hearing for consideration of an exemption declaration and amendment to a conditional use permit to allow the installation of a second wireless telecommunication facility consisting of a new roof-mounted antennas on an existing building on a property located in the single-family residential R1 zone. Do we have a staff report?
We'll want to have any members of the public are going to speak sworn in.
So, oh, that's right. Do we have any members of the public who want to speak on this agenda item? All right. I have to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. Thank you very much. Okay.
Is he speaking now?
Is this him?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. All right.
So we have Senior Planner Antonio Gardea, and he will give the presentation on this item.
Great. Thank you.
Ready?
Yes, Chair and Commissioners, tonight's item is an amendment to a CUP application for a wireless telecommunications facility and the CEQA exemption for the property located at 1016 Prospect Avenue. Typically, these modifications are handled administratively, but in this case, there are substantial modifications to the location. That's why this item is being brought before the Commission tonight. We do have a couple of minor changes that have been processed administratively for this site, one that occurred in March of 2021, and another that had occurred in August of 2020. Those, as I said, are typically processed administratively through a process that we internally call the 60409A exemptions for modifications to existing base stations. However, in this case, like I said, there's going to be a substantial change to the facility, and so that's why it's being brought before you tonight. As described in the project, in the outline here, the title, the location is zoned as R1. It's single-family residential. It's surrounded by single-family residential buildings, and it's a church located in this neighborhood. And you can see it's on Prospect and Avenue B at that corner. These are a couple of photos of the existing site, and this is looking eastward and from the north to the south. And this is the site plan and the existing equipment area. There's not going to be any substantial changes to the equipment area. Everything is going to remain in place. They're just adding a couple of pieces inside the cabinets. This is the roof plan, and this shows the new second cupola location. They already have one. They're going to be relocating some of the pieces of equipment in the existing cupola and placing them in the new south cupola. And they're doing this for technological reasons, which I'm sure the applicant can describe further. But what they want to avoid is interference with the new band that they are utilizing for the newer equipment. This shows the elevations of the before and after with the new tower. As you can tell, there is one of the delays that occurred here is that there's a piece of mechanical equipment that was installed in the roof, and we wanted that to be screened at the same time that they did this new tower. And so they're going to be using something that looks sort of like a chimney to screen that existing piece of equipment there. And you can see there's a easel here that has those different types of equipment. They're RF transparent, but they are designed so that they look like they're part of the building. This is the view looking again from north to south. From south to north, I mean. And these are the simulations that show the existing site here on the corner, and then what it would look like afterwards. This is a different view. And lastly, again from the south, looking northward. With this, typical concerns with wireless facilities are aesthetic concerns primarily. We want these to be stealth type facilities where you don't see the arrays, and it's particularly important in residential areas. That was the intent when this was originally brought forth to the Planning Commission back originally. There were some concerns about the type of screening material that they were going to use, and there was a condition included in that resolution that they use some material that was more compatible with the building. Again, the antenna arrays are repositioning some of those to the new tower. The equipment shelter will remain the same. There's no changes there. Typically with these, there was also concern about parking. Being that it's a church, a lot of the times the parking is underutilized, and if they need to do maintenance, there's plenty of parking available for anyone that needs to go service these antennas. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt the CEQA exemption and grant the amendment to the CUP for this new cupola. And again, the applicant is here available to answer any questions, any technical questions that you may have. We did not receive any public comment. One of the neighbors came to the counter thinking that there was going to be a new facility next to her house. She misread the address. And so that was about it. Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
All right. Do we have any questions for him? I'll ask a question first.
Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, I read correctly there, how long has there been a transmission on this site again? I'm sorry.
Since 2004.
2004, okay,
And it's been modified at least twice
okay.
more recently. With the changes in technology, there's a lot of newer antennas that they're deploying. And so we usually, like I said, process those administratively if they can house them within the existing facility. But in this case, like I said, for technological reasons, they didn't want interference. They want them placed on the separate tower looking towards the other sector.
It's on the ground right now.
No, it's in the tower.
It's in the tower, okay.
Yeah.
I read it wrong then, okay.
Yeah, the equipment shelter, the cabinets themselves there's a separate part. There's like the cable rails and stuff like that, conduits that go down towards the east side of the site where
Okay.
they house those equipment.
Okay, great.
But the antennas has always been on the top. It's just that
Yes.
the majority of the electronics is in that ground level
Equipment area.
down there.
So
Okay.
the antennas are in the cupola, and then there's the separate kind of cabinets that are down on the ground
Okay.
in the separate lease area.
Okay.
And the top of the cupola is within height limitations.
It's 34 feet in height, so it maxes out right at where it can be.
Sheila?
No, I
No.
don't go.
No? Commissioner
So
Boswell?
I'm wondering, was the selection of this particular site based on the ideal place to put an antenna, or was it selected because there's already another one there?
Well, typically what happens is they initially deploy based on the needs, coverage needs. In this case, had they been able to do this in a different way, it would have been done administratively because they already have the existing tower there. There's just upgrading the equipment, and for technological reasons, they need the second tower. But it would have, yeah, I think because it's already there, they have an existing lease agreement with the church. That's why they're interested in using the same location.
So the church is being compensated for this?
Yes.
Through that lease? And
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
lease will then be expanded to cover this as well, and so they'll bring in more revenue. Does the city of Redondo Beach see any piece of that through any kind of tax or fee or service? Fee or
I don't
Permit
think
fee
so.
or-
No,
no?
not in these
So
cases.
There's certainly a permit fee for applying for this conditional use permit.
Yes, there's that, but there's nothing related
Application fees,
to the revenue flow from the
no.
lease. Okay. All right.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Do we have any comments from the public? Can I do that? I can just ask for comments.
Yeah, if there's anybody aside from the gentleman that was sworn in, then we'll need to make sure they're sworn in.
Yeah, do we have any comments from the public on this?
No Zoom attendees and no further e-comments.
Is there any reason I shouldn't close a vote to?
I would see if the applicant wants to
Any-
speak.
Just representing the applicant here to answer any questions.
Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion to, yeah?
Just procedurally, we're required, right? We're required to obtain findings because it's a CUP, right? That it conforms with the general plan as you put in the resolution, right? The land use element goal 1K and objective 1.46. It also requires that there is adequate access to a public street. That's been ascertained. And that there's no adverse effect or nuisance to the neighborhood. Noise, visual, smell, privacy, parking. And we've ascertained that there has been no adverse effect or nuisance. There's been no public comment, no complaining, no past complaining, right? I checked with Mr. Gardia. There's a positive effect, right? The church is compensated. So that's just one additional piece of information that it conforms with the general plan. So based on our responsibility to make these findings, right? We've completed our job on this one.
Thank you, Sheila.
I agree.
Is that a motion to close the public hearing?
And that is a motion to close the public
Do I
hearing.
have a second?
I will second that.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. That's unanimous. All right, do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Yes, motion to approve Resolution 9224 as written.
I second.
All right, let's have a roll call vote on this.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hazeltine,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley is absent, Commissioner Lamb,
Yes.
and Chair Gaddis.
Yes, it's unanimous. It is approved. Congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
That's the box right there. Thank you.
So we're on to J2. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for J2?
Motion to open the public hearing for J2.
Is there anybody here who's going to speak on it who hasn't been sworn in on J2? Could you stand up, please? Do each of you swear to or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for J2?
Motion to open the public hearing for J2.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? Nope, unanimous. All right, this is a public hearing for the consideration of an exemption declaration and conditional use permit to allow the operation of a veterinary clinic and animal hospital within an existing commercial tenant space on a property located within a mixed-use MU3 zone at 234 South Pacific Coast Highway. May we have a staff report?
Yes, Senior Planner Gardea will present on this.
Thank you, Chair and Planning Commission. This is an item tonight is a conditional use permit and CEQA exemption for a veterinary clinic, or otherwise classified as an animal hospital in our zoning code. This is for the property at 234 South PCH. The proposal is for a full-service veterinary clinic. There will be no overnight boarding. And it would consist of 2 doctors with some staff, about up to 15 initial employees. This does require CUP in the MU3 zone. This is the location showing the site. It's combining 2 tenant spaces in this multi-tenant shopping center. It does back up to residential, but there are no openings that face the residential side of the area. These are some site photos. This is kind of an overall view of the corner of the entire shopping center. It's been recently renovated. And then a picture of the 2 tenant spaces that would be combined for the clinic. This is the site plan, the floor plan for the use of the space. It's tenant spaces number 107 and 108. It's a total size of 3,339 square feet in size. There are 23 parking spaces at the ground level, one loading space, and then there's 72 subterranean spaces underneath the surface parking lot here, 13 of which are tandem, for a total of 95. And it exceeds the base requirements for this multi-tenant shopping center by about 11 spaces. Typically with a use like this, where we do have concerns about traffic and parking, potential noise, impacts to the neighboring tenants, and waste disposal and odor control. And so when we looked at this, I did a couple of visits to the site and noted that as far as traffic and parking, usually there is some spaces on the surface level and an abundance of spaces on the subterranean level. The demand seems to be very low for parking when it comes to regular daytime hours. As the applicant may explain, they do have majority of the pets would be dropped off in the morning before the peak hours for the other uses in the site, and then picked up at the end of the day after the procedures are done. Noise, the applicant is looking to do some noise attenuation measures to make sure that it isn't bothersome to the neighboring restaurants. As far as waste disposal, it is handled per the American Animal Hospital Association protocols, and there is a condition in the resolution requiring that the applicant periodically monitor the vicinity for past pet waste and address it accordingly. We haven't heard from any of the neighbors about this. There was no inquiries regarding this proposal, and staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit and adoption of the CEQA exemption for this.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the, just for now, any questions
I
at all?
guess. I'll start.
Yeah, we do have some people from the applicant. Is there anything, any comments from the applicant that they'd like to add to what staff has presented? Okay, go ahead.
You did a great job.
He always does a good job.
Well, I have an obvious question. I just live a few blocks from there. What do you do with, a dog that you have to take? You can come up if you'd like. If you guys want to come up.
I might anticipate the question.
It's fine. There's not a lot of greenery around there. It's a lot of parking lot, and then next door is a hotel, and then around the corner is, there's a bank, and there's not a lot of greenery places for the dogs to eliminate. How do you solve that problem?
So we're not planning on walking the dogs at all because it's just for them to come in for an exam and leave. They'll only be there for about half an hour to an hour at a time. And so the owners will park, bring the pets in, have their exam and go home.
So
They
there's,
shouldn't be there for long periods of time except for surgeries.
yeah.
And then those animals, we're not walking them because they're having a surgery. So, they're coming in, they're getting a medication, put them to sleep, have their surgery, and then go home. We're
Okay.
not planning on keeping them for extended periods of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Boswell?
When they go, what happens?
So we just use standard cleaning protocols.
What would that be? I'm not a vet.
Different cleaning agents, rescue cleaning. There's something called rescue that we use, and we clean just like you would clean if they went in your house. So you just clean the floor, you throw it away in the normal trash.
And then you can just throw it in the normal trash, and then does that go into any kind of hazardous waste dump or
Not a
bin or
normal,
something?
no, not a normal, pet. If it was just,
Not a normal pet?
well, if they were, it was infectious, we wouldn't want to just put it in the trash.
Okay, so by infectious, something smaller than worms?
Right, like something like worms, I probably wouldn't just throw in the trash can, maybe put it in a, hazardous waste. We have those sharps containers to get rid of those things.
Okay.
And then anything in the boarding areas, it gets rinsed out, and there's floor drains or not the boarding areas, but the kennel areas where they'll recover from surgery, things like that. There's floor drains and rinsing protocols and cleaning protocols, particularly because this is mixed. It's in the hospitals, you have dogs and cats together. They're very sensitive. So both for clients, but especially for the animals, we want to keep the hospital very clean, keep odors to a minimum because it upsets recovery and the animal welfare. So there's a strong interest in us keeping down odors or any mess or anything like that for the patient recovery across the species as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had much experience with vet offices being very noisy, but I am curious what sort of noise attenuation measures you guys are looking at.
Yeah, so again, because it's a daytime, non-overnight, non-boarding, it is quite quiet.
Yeah.
And particularly because it's dog and cat. But we have full height walls, hard lids in the canine ward. Especially, you'll notice on the plans, typically a feline ward is near a canine ward, roughly, and you want it to be really quiet for the cats. So the overall volume in there is generally low. In the exam rooms, the front of house, you'll have a full height wall dividing the back from the front. And then you'll notice, again, any of the noise might occur treatment or the canine wards, and that's against the solid concrete wall in the back, very far away from the front of house. So again, with this design in a typical hospital operating like this, it's quieter than restaurant and most other uses in a strip center.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, I have a question. So part of what the services that you're planning to offer is described as minor urgent care. So I'm familiar with Access Healthcare, and that's like major major
I
urgent
wish
care.
it was that. I really do. It's so
Maybe
hard.
someday,
Yeah,
not there though.
different hearing, different location.
So I was wondering the difference between minor and major urgent care.
So something simple like a broken toenail.
Oh, okay.
An urgent matter is different for different people. So
right.
for example, an ear infection could be an emergency for the dog
Right,
owner.
right.
But we wouldn't see any kind of real true emergencies.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because I was wondering, I mean, one of the things that major urgent care has a couple of spots that are reserved right in front of the door for people who really need to get their animal into the clinic like right now, kind of thing. But that isn't at all what you, anticipate your clientele really needing.
I don't
So,
anticipate it.
okay.
It's a really small parking lot too.
Yeah.
If there was an emergency, they could just.
I'm a regular customer. I'm a regular customer of Terra Thai, so you'll enjoy being in the same building there if you like Thai food. So, okay. What?
Thai restaurant?
There's a Thai restaurant there, a good Thai restaurant right there. So it's a good place if you like that. Any other questions from the commission?
Well, I'm assuming this is not your first time being vets.
Correct.
And that you've done this somewhere else before.
Yes.
Did you own the
So
business or
I,
work for the business previously?
So Oliver's my partner. He's not a veterinarian. And we currently own a hospital in PV and on Deep Valley Drive. So we own a clinic up there and we're opening a secondary clinic here.
All right.
Oh, okay. So what lessons were learned at the other clinic that you're going to head off at the pass or right at the start on this one?
I think the main one is the noise, so we are definitely going to put in, more noise control measures, not even for the neighbors. The neighbors never complain, but for within the hospital. Because, even for us, we put in noise control measures up there and we notice we need more noise control measures. Yeah. So hopefully there will be no noise in this one.
What is that one dog that Rob has?
I'm amazed at how quiet. I mean, they're two. The South Bay Animal Hospital on Hawthorne and then access for serious surgeries and stuff. But there's never any noise at either of those places.
Well, we don't like the noise either, because you can imagine we're there, all day. And so we don't want to have dogs barking, so.
It's a good hallmark of a good hospital when you go in and it's quiet.
They're both just really silent. So,
The animals are happy.
or they're scared. I think they're probably
drugged.
scared.
Trying
Yeah,
to hide.
drugged. Yeah.
So it's just cats and dogs, no exotics, no birds,
Just
no
cats and
rabbits?
dogs.
Oh, okay. Well, it does mention other mammals.
You might get
He's
someone that
wondering because
comes
he
in
has
with a
he keeps
rabbit or-
rabbits, so
yeah.
he's just
You can
wondering
get
where to
folks that
take his
come in.
I
rabbit.
don't have a rabbit. Rabbit died.
See?
Rabbit needed our
It's
hospital.
not pregnancy
Exactly.
related.
All right. Any public comments from the public or anything?
No Zoom attendees and no further e-comments.
Any other questions from
I'll just do the thing.
the thing?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, because this is a CUP, we have 4 requirements. The site shall be in conformity with the general plan,
You can sit down if you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
and it's, according to staff, it is consistent with the general plan policy 1.3.1 of the land use element that allows for the development of commercial services which provide for the needs of the current and future residents. The site shall have adequate access to the public street and highway, which it does, and parking. Seems like it has adequate parking. There'll be no adverse effect on the surrounding properties. Talked about the noise, right? So it will be in alignment and not disturb the people in the abutting property or the in the commercial area. And the conditions, and then there will be conditions, and I've read the conditions. And I believe part of the conditions were that the dogs would not be walked. Is that correct? I think that was in the conditions.
We can definitely add that in as a condition if you want that spelled out specifically.
I don't think it's necessary because. Yes, I thought
It's
it
in
did
there.
say it was there,
Yeah, I thought-
correct?
Yeah.
Number 5. Yeah. Okay, so, and I think Senior Planner Gardia put adequate conditions. So I think we're good on this account for our CUP.
Is that a motion to close the public hearing?
And that's a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those against say no. No. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
And I'll second it.
We should have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hazeltine,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley's absent, Commissioner Lamb,
Yes.
and Chair Geddes.
Yes. Congratulations. You're approved.
I'm a big fan of private vets.
Yes.
Please don't ever sell to a corporation.
We love that.
Can we make it a condition that they never sell to a corporation?
Well, if they open a couple more sites, they will be a corporate entity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
A little concerned, there's a Thai restaurant near a vet.
Cut the sound. That will not enter the record, okay?
Oh, I'm glad I
It's
missed
already
it.
approved.
All right.
Oh.
Do I have a motion to open,
Motion to open public hearing for consideration of amendments to Title 10, Chapter 2 zoning ordinance of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code pertaining to service station regulations regarding J3.
do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. It is unanimous that is open. Public hearing. Gee whiz. Okay. I'm
Oh,
trying
I
to
did
figure out the guts of this to read. It's just public hearing, consideration of amendments to Title 10, Chapter 2 zoning ordinance of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code, RMBC, pertaining to service station regulations regarding general food sales, consideration of findings / exemptions under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, including but not limited to findings that said additional regulations and or amendments of existing regulations are not subject to CEQA pursuant to sections blah, blah, blah of the CEQA guidelines, and the code amendments are not a project, quote, project subject to section 15378B5.
Want to see if there's anybody to be sworn in.
Yeah, is anybody going to speak on this matter? I need to swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. All right. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to the assistant to the city manager, Luke Smoody, to give the presentation.
Thank you, Brandy. And Chair Gaddis, I apologize for that title. Brandy told me it was all perfunctory and had to be included, so sorry you had to read that whole long title there. I apologize.
Yeah,
you could have just said beer at gas stations.
yeah, that's exactly right. See, the issue is it's not descriptive of what the issue is. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all procedural, but I do apologize. And
no, it's not your fault.
Yeah, commissioners, thank you for having me tonight. I'm just going to kind of go through a little background on this item, let you know how it appears before you tonight, what steps were taken prior to tonight, and then go over kind of what the policy entails and what the environment in the city and state law sort of has overarching this right now. So this item was referred to staff on April 4th of last year, and basically asked us to look into the current city policy that outlaws the sale of general food items at service stations. And so we brought sort of a policy overview in November, brought a potential ordinance amending the current policies in February. And then at February 28th, and that was approved by council, the draft ordinance. And then on February 28th, that referral was amended to have it only apply to the inland area as opposed to citywide, coastal, and inland. And so tonight, we're before the Planning Commission requesting that you adopt a resolution that finds that this action is exempt from CEQA, that the amendments proposed to the zoning ordinance are consistent with the general plan, that the amendment does not require a vote of the people, and then also that the Planning Commission recommend City Council adoption of the ordinance once it is passed through here, if that occurs. And so just to give you a little overview of the city right now, there are currently 11 service stations and 9 of them are in the inland zone. And so the ones with green circles on this map are all the ones that are currently sitting in the inland zone and would be subject to the proposed ordinance that council has put forward. And with respect to service stations, the regulations that cover it now, there's a 1971 ordinance from the city that basically permitted service stations to provide and sell only incidental convenience items, which, as it's stated in the ordinance, is for the immediate consumption of the motoring public. And that small class of goods includes soft drinks, candy, cigarettes, other small items. And so it's not a gallon of milk or a large bag of chips. It's just something that someone's going to grab and go and move on from there. And so state law that basically would overarch the local policy, they allow cities that have a prohibition that existed prior to 1987 to prohibit the sale of general food items, which includes beer and wine, as long as that beer and wine is subject of that larger class. And so general food items includes beer and wine. Our prohibition preceded that 1987 state law that basically said you cannot outlaw the beer and wine by itself unless it is part of that larger class. And so we predate that, so our law is still valid, or our prohibition is still valid. And so that Business and Professions Code also is what controls regulation of facilities and cities that do allow the sale of general food items inclusive of beer and wine, and it sets the minimum standards for what must be followed in order for that to take place. But it also, that Business and Professions Code also allows local jurisdictions to impose additional restrictions above and beyond what those minimum standards are. And so to go through those minimum standards, no beer and wine can be sold within 5 feet of the door. No alcohol ads can be placed on fuel islands. Alcohol can't be sold through drive-in windows. There's no displays of alcohol in ice tubs like you might see at just a liquor-specific facility. No illuminated ads, and employees working between 10 and 2 a.m. must be at least 21 years old in order to sell alcohol. And so what we did and what we presented to council for the draft ordinance included additional regulations above and beyond this business and professions code section. And so what we included in the draft ordinance, which has not been finalized but was approved to move on by council, was that we would comply with all or anyone choosing to get to seek approval to sell general grocery items would comply with all ABC provisions. They would only sell beer and wine, not hard liquor. There would be a limit placed on the amount of retail floor space that could be dedicated to the sale of beer and wine. Coolers that contain the alcohol would be locked when the items aren't being sold. Limit or prohibit single serving containers. Limit the visibility of alcohol advertisement, so it's not something where, maybe it's not directly on a window, but if you saw it going by, you might see, an ad. We would want it to be a truly incidental purchase where someone's inside, decides that that's something they want to purchase and do that instead of an advertisement bringing them in for that specific purpose. And then make sure that the hours of operation fit with the uses in the surrounding area, and then prohibit electronic games. And that was something we saw in other cities as sort of a way to prohibit loitering in a situation where someone might purchase something and then decide to, despite it being against regulations, might be impelled to potentially partake in what they had purchased on site, which would be obviously against the regulations. And so if the Planning Commission supports this going back to council and council approves an ordinance that would, change the policy, individual business owners would come back to the Planning Commission seeking conditional use permits. And that's really where there would be a lot of say by the Planning Commission as to how this policy was enacted. And with a condition as a condition of approval under our Redondo Beach Municipal Code, the proposed use would have no adverse effect on abutting property. And then also, if someone was issued a conditional use permit, but we did see issues pop up in the future, there is pretty strong language and clear grounds for revocation if something was, a CUP was issued and later it became a problem. And so that this kind of goes over some more specific areas through the CUP process that could be used to select sites that were appropriate for this use. And so one grounds that is used is what's called an undue concentration, and that has a couple aspects to it. One of those is concentration by census tract. And so LA County establishes for all the census tracts in Redondo Beach a concentration that's allowed for off-sale beer and off-sale liquor sales and beer and wine sales, and that's one location per 1,605 residents. And so, if an area has a concentration that's higher than that, or adding one to a census tract would increase that, that could be a grounds to say, there's an undue concentration in this area. We're not going to approve that CUP. And there's also a stipulation about crime rate. And so City of Redondo Beach has 70 plus crime reporting districts. And so you'd basically take an average of the crimes per crime reporting district, look at that reporting district that facility falls in, and you would, compare the average compare the number of complaints in that area to the city average. And if it's more than 20% greater than that city average, that could be grounds to find there's an undue concentration based on that, based on the crime reporting in that area. And so even with that, Planning Commission could decide that approval could be granted for a CUP if convenience or public convenience or necessity was satisfied by the issuance of the CUP. So there is a lot of flexibility there. It wouldn't be a hard no if it increased over one of these areas, but it would be an objective finding of its unsuitability if you chose to, if either of those conditions were in place. And so that's the end of my prepared remarks, but obviously I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about the policy or kind of what council's direction is for this evening.
I just wanted to add, I know that Mr. Smoody had already mentioned this at the beginning. This is just for the inland. That was the city council's direction. They didn't want to focus on the coastal at this point because they wanted, first of all, that takes a process and it has to be processed through the Coastal Commission. That's a very timely process. They wanted to see how this would work on the east of PCH area.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
And that's legal? I'm assuming it's legal that they can do that?
We're here, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I don't even know if there's any gas stations west on PCH, so I think there's one.
There are two.
There too.
Which on Riviera, is that?
There's the one in Riviera Village, and then there's one on Torrance and PCH.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, don't they already sell beer and wine because they're a 7-Eleven?
If they're a gas station, so they wouldn't be allowed to, yeah.
So they don't.
That's
Our
that
understanding
prohibition.
is they
They
do
don't.
not. Yeah. and-
Okay.
Yeah.
And that gas station is on the east side of PCH, isn't it?
No, it's on the west side.
Okay,
Yeah, northwest corner.
just under the wire.
Let me
Or over the wire, depending on your
lead
perspective.
off with just a question for you. Can you walk me through again the sequence and history of, okay, we passed a law that said that you can't sell alcohol. If I understand this correctly, we
Right.
passed a law. What year was that? That was in
1971.
71. We passed an ordinance that gas stations couldn't sell alcohol or couldn't sell groceries.
We passed an ordinance that said service stations were only permitted to sell incidental food items. So that smaller class, that's more of a snack, cigarettes, candy,
Yeah.
and so immediately consumable items for the motoring public, which I love. I love that term. I think it's so quaint. So I'm going to say it as often as possible. But
Immediately consumable alcohol for the motoring
no,
public.
not that, but.
So that now changes if this passes.
That would be changed. And so to continue the chronology of that, so we put that on the books in 1971 as a city where it was just those incidental food items and not that general grocery category that's larger food items, but also includes beer and wine. In 1987, the state created a law that basically said you can no longer create new policy that prohibits the sale of those items together, general grocery and gasoline sales, if both those uses are independently allowed in that area. So say we're in a zoning area that it's, general grocery is allowed and gas station, fuel sales are allowed together. You couldn't prohibit either one of those if they're both allowed in that land use area. And so that was 1987 and basically said, from this point on, no new policy can prohibit these things being sold together. But if you have a law that predates that and only, excludes beer and wine as part of that larger category, which is the general grocery or general food, general grocery category, then it's still a viable law. And so that's the situation where we find ourselves in now. We couldn't pass that same ordinance now that we passed in 1971. And if we move forward with an ordinance that basically allows it, then we lose that prohibition. But it just moves forward with the policy that's
So
kind of
if we're
more
to
in
change
step.
this, we can't go back.
No, we lose
Correct.
it.
And we can't do both.
No.
So, I don't know. Are you done?
Sheila.
Okay.
Commissioner Lamb.
Quick question.
Put me on the list.
This connection between groceries and beer and wine, what's the beginning of that, and why? How can they be separate? I think that was a couple of questions that the council had was why can't there's only one way for beer and wine not to be sold, and that would be under the discretion of the property owner.
Right. If the applicant had submitted an application, so we just want to sell groceries, we don't want to sell beer and wine, that's what you would be reviewing. They'd put that in their application, and you could approve that that conditional use permit for just the groceries. If they wanted to come back later and apply for the beer and wine, they'd have to come and have that CUP amended.
Why is that the only way to separate beer and wine? And why can't, what's the law, I guess, that marries the beer and wine with the groceries?
Unfortunately, I was not able to trace that all the way back to its roots, so I don't know where that began. But I just know in everything that I've researched for this, that general food category just is inclusive of beer and wine for the purposes of the law and the regulations that apply to it.
Basic state law?
Yeah, that's my understanding, and haven't seen anything where they're separated in any meaningful way.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to follow up on her question. So at this point, none of these stations can just apply to sell groceries.
Correct.
They are prohibited as a class of businesses.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's per our 1971.
Correct. Per that 1971 ordinance that only allows for those incidental food items.
Okay. Commissioner
So
Boswell?
I will follow up. So just to be clear, it's impossible for us to say we approve this, but only for groceries and to not include alcoholic beverages. We can't do that.
That's correct.
Because there is no such category, just groceries.
Correct.
It's groceries.
Inclusive of beer and wine.
So beer and wine are part of the inseparable category called groceries.
Yeah, general food.
General food.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I have a separate question unless someone else needs to go first. Go ahead.
So is part of the reason this coming up is because a lot of these stations now have service bays that are going to be closing and they're looking for things to fill that space with? Or why is this coming up?
Yeah, I think specifically on Artesia Boulevard, there was, and he recently appeared before the Planning Commission to redevelop his site. Mm-hmm. And so it's something where he, in order to support it from a business standpoint, he desires to sell a greater class of goods. And so with just being able to sell a small bag of chips, he's not going to really be able to support the people that he wants to draw to his site. And specifically, I think he was desiring bringing in a large number of electric chargers where someone's going to be there 20, 30 minutes as opposed to 3 to 5 minutes that you're filling your tank up with gasoline. And so it just would give them more options and give him more business opportunity to take advantage of those people that he would be drawing to his site because of those electric chargers.
Okay. Interesting.
That's a particular gas station.
A particular gas station that I think probably drove the initial comment or the initial ask to council, but from the community. And I know also when he appeared before council in his public comment, he just sort of spoke to the shrinking margins on gasoline sales and what his monthly revenue was 10 years ago on gasoline sales versus what it is now and just how it's shrinking. And so in order to survive from a business perspective, has to diversify revenue streams as it's just not everything he has to pay for overhead from a business perspective isn't getting satisfied by gasoline profits.
Commissioner Godak?
So that leads me to my next question, which is with gas stations losing business and CUPs running with the property, what happens if the property converts from a gas station to something else? What would happen to the CUP in that case?
It would depend. If they end up applying for something else that requires a CUP, that the latter CUP would prevail. So, in that review, it would be this is now what is approved for that site. If it's something where, they came in with some other permitted use, those sites are, tend to be a little bit larger, so it would most probably have a conditional use. But if they came in with something that was a permitted use, then, they would just move forward with that permitted use. They wouldn't be doing the gas station or the fueling station service station is approved per that site design. So if they're changing that site design to something that would be permitted, they'd have to work under that permitted, and that CUP would no longer, it'd be defunct because they would have changed the site. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Just to confirm, if we were to recommend this and it passes, then there's no way that, that anyone except the ABC could stop that site from selling beer and wine.
Well, they would come to you with a conditional use permit application.
Saying we want to sell food, but that automatically means beer and wine is sold there.
Under the law, yes, but our interpretation and what we've been advised by the city attorney's office is an individual business could come in and say, I just desire to sell the general food portion of this and do not wish to sell beer and wine, in which case then ABC would have no bearing over it.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be at the discretion of each business owner. It wouldn't
Right.
be something that we couldn't as a policy say you can only apply for a CUP for the food portion of that general food
Right.
category.
And why would they even approach us? I mean, if they're already by default approved to sell food and beer and wine, except for subject to ABC approval,
I
right?
think that the issue would be, can you pull up the presentation?
Yeah, of course.
I was thinking that the two conditions that you were talking about that are grounds to deny a conditional use permit that could be considered. So, going back to that exceeds the standards by census tract, so that concentration or the crime rates are exceeding the city average by 20% or more in those districts or in that particular district. So those could be things that you're evaluating. So you're looking at, is there this, heavier concentration? Is there concern about crime in that area that you could look at that as well. If there become issues impacting the adjacent properties, there's the potential for revoking that conditional use permit because of
But
that.
that would revoke all food sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and they could then come back in for a conditional use permit for just food sales, or when you, if you wanted to reconsider it in that revocation consideration, that goes back to the planning commission. So it's not just some, like I say, oh, it's revoked. It would still come back to the planning commission. There's a procedure for revoking it. And at that point, you could say, here are the issues. If you if you testify that you're just moving forward with groceries, beer and wine sales, we could amend this conditional use permit. So, at that point, they could still be considered for just that food sale and not the beer and wine, if there's that concern that the alcohol sale is impacting it in some concentrated or criminal way.
Okay. And these denials are in the state law?
Yeah, this undue concentration designation is spelled out in the business. I believe it's the Business and Professions Code.
Okay. Commissioner Lamb.
So I believe that the problem that we're trying to solve, that the problem that is trying to be solved here by changing the code is that the business owner wants to increase their profit margin at gas stations because business may be declining due to electrification of automobiles. That's sort of the genesis of this changing of the code. There are other considerations in regards to changing this code. And that is the impact, not of just one gas station, but the policy change of increasing outlets, alcohol outlets within the community. So it's not just one gas station, it would be 9 gas stations that then would be allowed to increase their profit margin by serving groceries and alcohol. I do have some questions about that. Is that our role, right? Is that our role to facilitate? It is our role to support small business, but is that our role really to intervene here to help businesses that are in a declining business model? I'm not sure. And what is the trade-off here in terms of the impact of increasing the number of alcohol outlets in our community? And I know Gail has some.
I do, actually.
Gail has some statistics here for us.
Or did we wanna-
Commissioner Boswell had a question.
Yeah.
If would you like to ask it now
Yeah,
before?
well, and
she-
this raises questions as well.
Okay.
But could I get the presentation back up again? I was going to comment on
Yeah.
that. So in regards to these, I guess, conditions of denial, these two conditions of denial, do any of the 9 gas stations or service stations in the area we're considering have issue with either of these?
Yeah, there are instances where there are crime rates that exceed that 120% total compared to the city average, and there's also instances where adding one more per census tract could potentially take us over that 1,605 resident per capita.
So those gas stations would not be able to take advantage of this. They would have to stay with snacks.
They would be able to apply,
service.
and if the planning commission made the determination that the public convenience or necessity was satisfied by the issuance of that CUP, my understanding in talking to the local ABC office was if the planning commission signs off on the CUP, that's pretty compelling to them. They will still run the statistics and see it, but if the planning commission supports it, despite it not meeting those thresholds or it exceeding the limit, it seems from what I've been told that the ABC would side with the planning commission, just knowing the local area and supporting that
So
decision.
the planning commission can basically give a pass on these.
Correct.
Sounds like. Anyway, so if we weren't to do that, how many gas stations would still be able to take advantage of the new rules?
It is.
Only have, out of 11 stations, there's 9 in the inland zone.
I think there's 4 that are underneath the threshold for reported incidents as far as crime goes. And from the last time I run the numbers, and I don't know if they've changed since when I brought it in February, because the licenses kind of fluctuate a little bit with some suspended, some going offline. But at that time, it appeared that the majority of adding one in the majority of our census tracts would also take us over that 1605 threshold.
How many would be eliminated based on the census tract issue?
At the time I ran them, it was the full 9, but I can't.
All of them?
I can't say that that's still today the numbers because they fluctuated in the times I ran them.
So we may be passing something that we will then have to address gas station by gas station as they try to do this.
Oh, correct, and I believe that's how it would be anyway. Just through the CUP process, it'd be an individualized process per business that would come in with that.
So, boy, this sounds so much like government. Anyway, so I guess that answers my question. It's a little disturbing that it's that easy to get around. So there you have it. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a couple of additional things because Commissioner Lamb had a couple questions, so I just wanted to.
I'm done.
Okay. One was, you were asking more of a general, and I think that that's per your conversation of, what would you be deciding here? What are you, what would the impacts of what you're deciding be? A couple of things to keep in mind is that what we were adding, I think as one of the limitations was limiting the percentage of retail floor space that could be used for the alcohol sales. That had been a concern of, are we creating another liquor store or alcohol outlet, right? So by limiting that percentage of retail floor space, it's really that's not going to be the main focus of what is sold. It will be part of if they apply for that and get the CUP for it. So that was just one thing. And then another to consider, and I think that particular, the particular operator that had come before the Planning Commission in the last year, with that change of operations going to, now somebody's going to be here for 15, 20, 30 minutes for charging is if you have that grocery available, and you might be reducing trips. So somebody's not charging, waiting. Now I got to go to a grocery store to get some of my basics. So that was just something to take into consideration for where's that balance of what the decision is that the city council will make.
I have a question. So do I understand correctly with the two, can you pull up the two litmus tests again? That basically these eliminate all 9. One or the other eliminates basically all 9.
Yeah, at the time that I ran the numbers, it does. But like I said, if it's a use that Planning Commission chose to support, you could cite, the public convenience and necessity being satisfied and allowing it to take place.
And if they were to approach us saying, okay, we'll sell groceries but not beer and wine, we could approve those, and we're not violating any laws.
That's my understanding, as long as that's a self-selected designation by the operator.
And otherwise, they might as well not approach because, they would be eliminated by these things.
Yeah, unless they had a compelling case that, public convenience and necessity was met, that the Planning Commission supported.
As our decision.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next question is, how often do these statistics change, and what is the procedure that they would say, oh, well, our crime is down, so now we're going to reapply?
The crime statistics are run on a monthly basis, but I don't know if they would want to peg it to an annual. I don't think there's an established standard of every 6 months or a time frame like that we would publish those statistics. I think annual is kind of the threshold typically for the police crime statistics. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that we have a time frame of when we would be releasing those numbers to folks by reporting district.
They can tell the numbers to be run saying, well, I think crime's down, I want to reapply. Am I eligible now to simply have this, to apply for this and it'll be granted because neither of these tests, I passed both of these tests.
Yeah, I'm not sure how someone would request that directly from the police department, but.
Commissioner Boswell?
So couldn't they just come before the Planning Commission and have us say you're okay? That seems to be how it works, right? We can sidestep these two thresholds just by having a vote, right?
Correct. That's my understanding of how it could be supported despite those thresholds.
It's an interesting point that somebody thinks the crime rate has gone down and then we approve it, and then 2 months later the crime rate is up again. Do we then haul them back in here and say, take all the beer and wine out? It doesn't seem like the best way to make decisions on this. And the same thing with the residential aspect of it. Somebody's got a gas station and is denied because of the density. And then all of a sudden, a high-rise, multifamily, high-density residential unit starts leasing out, and this gas station owner says, "I think that now dilutes the numbers such that I think I can be approved." What is the process? Do we have to go and check how many of those units are actually rented, and then recalculate their ratio?
The numbers were pegged to the census data that was published, and so it's on a firm basis of those numbers, which are change.
So they have to wait for the next census?
That's what the numbers are run against that I find to be the most that I've taken my research from. I don't know if they update annually. I know the official census is every 10 years, but I don't know if those numbers are.
I think they estimate every so often.
Yeah.
But again, all that could be sidestepped by them just coming in here and stating their case. And if we vote to allow it, it's allowed, regardless of density.
Should we listen to Commissioner Hazeltine's thoughts on this?
So originally I had listened to the city council meeting and I thought, I'm like, yeah, whatever, why not? It sounds like a great idea, with 9 gas stations, what's the big deal? So then I started pulling up some research on it, and actually, there's quite a lot of studies, articles and data that's been published one titled Outlet Type Access to Alcohol and Violent Crime. And basically, the conclusion is access to outlets that allow for off-site consumption had a greater association with violent crime than outlets that only permit on-site consumption. The lack of effective measures to keep order in and around all premise outlets could attract or multiply violent crime. Another article, the association between density of alcohol establishments and violent crime within urban neighborhoods. Basically the exact same results. And interestingly enough, there is a difference between restaurants that sell alcohol and crime data, and then liquor stores or gas stations that take alcohol off premises. And it turns out there's more violent crime with off-premise consumption. So I did put this in the blue folder item, which I think is really important, and I'm glad that I found it. And it's a health outcomes and data analysis branch of substance abuse prevention and control from LA County Department of Public Health. And this is from December of 2022. So the county public health. And basically, Redondo isn't doing that great. So,
Oh, no.
yeah, so when we look at what we've got going and we look at on-premise alcohol outlet density among cities, community, and service planning areas, and we look at the city of Redondo Beach, we actually have high on-premise alcohol outlets. We have high density on off-permit alcohol So basically, we have a lot of these establishments already. Cities and communities with a high density of off-premises alcohol outlets were 2.1 times more likely to have high alcohol-involved vehicle crashes than cities and communities with a low densities of off-premises. Cities and communities with a high density of on-premises, I think, but we'll go with the off-premises since we're looking at this. Alcohol, 2.1 more likely to have high incident-related hospitalization rates. And more likely to have 2.1 times more likely to have alcohol-related deaths. So, and then crime is also something that's considered in the report. So where those are all high, these are all the other things like death, et cetera, is at a medium level in the city of Redondo Beach. So it's published, and it's published off the census. It's a report that's put out by the county. And so I'm kind of a little concerned that we're going to be losing this really valuable prohibition. We're all for groceries, and I wish there was a way we could separate out those two. But once we decide that we're going to look at each conditional use permit individually, we've lost the ability to limit it. And, I was hearing at the city council meeting some stuff on homelessness and hanging out at gas stations, and I could not find anything on that. I just don't think it happens. I think that what I found was that people that are unhoused tend to congregate where it's warmer or they feel protected or something like that. And that's not necessarily at a gas station selling alcohol. So I am concerned about this. I don't like the idea of losing something that's so valuable and losing the prohibition, which once we say, well, we want to look at these all individually. And we're saying, well, 9 of the gas stations wouldn't even work anyhow because there's too many violent crimes. It sounds like, let's just stay where we're at. It might be a safer place, at this point.
Huh.
Thank you. Should we take public comment at this point? Do we have some public comment on,
Well, can we discuss that?
discuss whether we should
We
take
have-
public comment?
The Yale's Commissioner
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely
Hazeltine's
discuss
essay.
it. Yeah, well, I
I
think
hope it was in 3 minutes. I tried.
my
You're not
timer
doing
broke
public
anyway.
comments. You get 5 minutes. Unless you're me, you get 8.
Do we have public comment on this?
There are no Zoom attendees and no e-comments on this.
And we have somebody in the audience.
Somebody in person, could you approach with your comments?
Oh, same report.
Yes, you did very well. Good evening, Allie Stewart with Beach Cities Health District.
Did you?
No, I just noticed that report. It was
Yeah,
great.
so, and I just wanted to share a little bit more. So at Beach Cities Health District, we've been working part of the Drug-Free
Yeah,
Communities
can you
Grant.
identify yourself? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Allie Stewart with Beach Cities Health District.
Thank you.
Yeah, and since 2019, we've been working with the Drug-Free Communities Grant Program. That's a national program where communities work together to reduce youth access to substance use. So through the work of our Youth Advisory Council, we have found that the more availability there is of alcohol or any substance in a community, it becomes more accessible and acceptable for young people to use. And our Youth Advisory Group, which is made up of about 50 young people from the beach cities, they've done a lot of work in this area. So looking at various outlets and how they see them as they move through their days. And so I appreciate staff's consideration to add those additional conditions to reduce some of the signage, some of the other things that we know can be effective in kind of minimizing the impact. But I did just want to share a little bit of data from Redondo Beach on youth substance use. We were making some good gains. The numbers had started to creep down, but most recently with the California Healthy Kids Survey, and this is a statewide survey that's conducted with schools throughout the state, it really gives us the opportunity to see how we're doing compared to some other key health indicators. And in Redondo Beach, we found that in 2022, the past 30 days, alcohol use for 11th graders was 23%. This had jumped up from 14% in 2021. So we did see this significant increase after making some gains over the years. How this compares to LA County, the current past 30-day substance use for 11th graders is 10%, and the state of California is 16%. So you see in Redondo Beach, it's significantly higher when it comes to youth alcohol use. The other data point that I did want to share was just around access, and the California Healthy Kids Survey also asks about how difficult they perceive it to be able to access alcohol. So in the beach cities, in Redondo Beach in 2022, 41% said it was very easy to obtain alcohol. And so this is also higher than LA County in the state. And so I bring this to you tonight just to consider. I appreciated the commissioner's comments about access and the impacts that it might have on use. Is there a need for more availability of these outlets, knowing the impacts that it might have on young people in the community? And so I won't share the other report because you already did that. So yes, in Redondo Beach, both on and on site is in that high category for outlet density. So thank you.
I have some questions for you, if you don't mind. Are there any statistics about availability of alcohol at, say, gas stations and accidents, et cetera? I mean, are there statistics on that you know of?
Yeah, and in the same report, in the same county report, they look at some of those, not only the crime, but also some of the accidents, other health impacts that might be occurring related to the off-site sales. And so, yes, absolutely. Within that report, they talk about that in the percentages based on the data that is reported to the county substance abuse prevention control unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
I have a question. You said that our 11th graders state that access to alcohol is easy. They're not walking into liquor stores and buying alcohol. Where are they getting it?
Yeah, and that's a secondary question on the California Healthy Kids Survey, where they are able to obtain it. So often from a friend, maybe an older sibling, maybe someone who has fake ID is another category. And so I think when you look at some of the considerations around alcohol outlet density, it is in that perception category, because if there are more retail establishments available in the community, it's perceived to be more normal and acceptable. And so I can get the exact data on where they're obtaining it, if they are saying it's easy to obtain, but we do know that it's from a friend, maybe at a party, also from adults. That's another category that is an option on that survey, that they're maybe getting it from an adult sibling or another family member.
They're getting alcohol from people who are able to buy it legally, unless, of course, there's a fake ID. But then the incidence of fake IDs are way down from when I was using an X-Acto knife to switch a couple of numbers on my driver's license.
Is that true? Is the incidence of fake IDs, do we know if that's
I don't know the
actually
answer to
less
that.
now?
I
that
don't
we
know the
have
answer to that question.
digital
actually.
laser printers
Yeah,
in
I'm not
home?
If you look at how
laminating
IDs are,
devices
if you
and-
look at how IDs are examined by somebody selling alcohol these days, it's far more scrutinized than when I was 19, let's say. And where it was actually pretty easy to get a fake ID or to make one yourself. And despite the ability to use various computer technologies to create your own, they still don't really come up to the standard of a state-issued driver's license and are easy to spot by someone who knows what they're looking for. So the incidence of fake IDs to get alcohol for minors, I think is way down. It's my assumption is they're just raiding their parents' liquor cabinet.
I'm smiling at
which is the easiest way for kids to get booze, and that liquor is always going to be there.
About you.
No, but she's
That
smile.
liquor is always going to be there because their parents drink.
Yeah.
There's no way to stop that kid from doing that, short
Well,
of
I
his
don't think
parents
that that's
being
the
called
point.
in.
I'm not sure that that's the point. I mean, we're talking specifically about whether we want to include gas stations.
But
That's the point.
I know, but I'm addressing her comments on this issue and asking how valid are they in relation to that. And I don't think that a lot of what you said is really valid for us to be able to make a proper decision on this. It's interesting, and I'm glad that Beach City's Health District performs this service for, I guess, the youth of the 3 beach cities that you're responsible for. That's great. But I don't think, and I do have some issues with that study because it is just one study. I don't know that it's been reviewed by outside sources, but in my opinion,
This
if you
isn't
have-
a study.
huh?
What I just said, it's not, it's an accumulation of data. It's the county put out on how many liquor stores we have,
So
how
it's just
many,
raw statistics gleaned from
on
this.
every city in the county,
Okay.
how many
So
restaurants sell
If-
alcohol,
if somebody is deciding they're going to buy some alcohol tonight,
right?
are they going to buy more because there are more outlets available? Are they going to buy it more often because there's outlets available? I don't think so. I don't know that that necessarily holds true. I think adding 9 more, just for argument's sake, I haven't made up my mind on the issue yet, but adding 9 more outlets that are going to be at gas stations, that are going to be very worried about losing their ability to have this profit center. I don't know that that's going to contribute that much to a decline in
In this, there's
Our
there's really an interesting statistic. If every zip code decreased one alcohol consumption place, one liquor store is gone, we would have a significant decrease in deaths, like by 10%. So the stats are there. They're not making them in the state of California, not in just the city of Redondo, but the stats are there. They're not, Commissioner Boswell,
so what is it about there being one less liquor store
in every
that's
zip
going
code.
to stop somebody from buying alcohol and then driving drunk?
Is that a question you can illuminate for us?
I think there are probably many factors at play, and I think that, I guess more like a specific question is one less alcohol outlet and the decrease in crime and associated health impacts. Is that what you're asking? If we know the causation of that?
I could barely hear you.
Okay, are you asking for the causation of alcohol-related crimes and/or accidents?
Deaths in particular.
Hospitalizations.
So
break it down.
I guess what I'm playing devil's advocate with here is if you took out one liquor store in a zip code area or 2 liquor stores in Redondo Beach, how is that going to keep people from buying alcohol? If you look at a map of liquor stores in Redondo Beach, they're all over the place. Yes, we're very dense on that. They're going to go another block and buy it. Or they're going to pick it up at Ralph's, or they're going to go to,
So that argument, Commissioner, would be, well, we're already messed up. We might as well just
no,
keep
that's
getting
not,
messed
that
up.
is not what I'm saying.
Well, no, but that kind of is, because we are
That's
already,
that's
we
a
already
leap.
have a lot of alcohol outlets.
Yes.
And look, I'm not a Puritan. I'm not trying to be. And I literally listened to the city council
But I
meeting
heard you were a
going,
Puritan.
what's the issue? I mean, I literally like am
All the
going, what's the
pilgrims say
issue?
you
And
are.
then you start looking at it, and we're not a community with low or medium alcohol places. We're high as a city. We're really high. So then you start, well, then really we need one more? I mean,
So now the question is, who are these people that are becoming victims of crime or drunk driving or whatever, these negative outcomes?
Do you have some information for us on that?
Are they Redondo Beach residents or are they tourists? Do we have somebody there? Because
you
people
just
come
know
here.
how many people end up in the emergency
Because
room. Of
if
those
you-
people, how many
if
end
you-
up dead?
If you
How
go
many
down to the Hermosa
calls?
Beach Pier on any Friday or Saturday night, there can't possibly be that many 20-somethings living in Hermosa Beach, and they're all drunk. And for a long time, this was where the Hermosa Police Department spent most of its money after about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, breaking up fights and crime and dealing with, all the stuff that happens when young people get drunk in party zones.
So could I bring this back to sort of frame your comment? And that is, our task here is to determine whether gas stations should be allowed to sell groceries, beer, and wine, and if that is in alignment with the general plan. And that would be the health and safety issue, right? That's what we're really, that's the key here. Is selling beer and wine compatible with the health and safety of our residents? And if we're already at the top end of the alcohol outlets, adding more, is that a benefit to the health and safety of our community, or is it a detriment?
Can I just add to that a little bit? It's selling beer and wine at gas stations, which is motor vehicle, centric kind of place.
Right.
And I did ask the question, is that directly related, the increase of or changes in how many gas stations sell beer and wine related to accidents, frequency and such? And I believe you said yes.
Yes.
And that's, the county report has
Right.
that data.
Yes. They separate out, it's on premise or off premise. So you're talking gas station liquor stores versus restaurants, I'm assuming. Yeah.
Well,
And so
she may be talking about a different statistic than you
she's
are.
looking at the same report I am.
I know, but it's still, is it just off premises versus on premises, or is it gas stations and motor vehicle accidents?
It's on and off site.
Okay, okay.
If I may,
It came out in blue folder, it was late.
I know.
Yeah,
I
know. They
tried to
come
read
late,
it in
they
like
come late.
30 seconds.
if I may, and I'm not arguing one way or the other. I just want to make a clarification. One of the limitations that we're looking at is that it wouldn't be those individual, so you wouldn't be able to just buy, your 40, or you couldn't just buy a tall boy and take that out with you. You're buying a full, I'm not saying that people wouldn't go and drink their bottle of wine in their car. The point being is, when you're talking about that off-site, the off-premises consumption sale of a liquor store or a grocery store, they can sell those individual containers, those individual consumption containers. Just something to consider. Yeah.
And the gas stations can't?
That's one of the limitations that Luke had in the presentation. Yeah.
That was in the proposed ordinances, limiting or eliminating.
Single serve Like you
So you
can't
can't
go in
get
and
your
get a quart
40
bottle.
ounce there?
You can't get a
Six
quart
Is it
pack.
bottle.
40 ounces
One
single
beer.
serve?
So,
It's a good question.
Depends on who you ask.
You can't get a quart bottle of Coors, but you could buy
a six
a
pack.
bottle of wine, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Or
how
do you
did
have to buy a 12-pack of wine?
Or a six-pack of wine.
Okay. So I think what's also, if, we kind of look at the Artesia place, because that's something that's fresh in our mind, that gas station. He also actually had another aspect of his business model, which was kind of almost deli-ish,
Well, he had
more
an
like
ice
a
cream
deli
store.
where he had ice cream and he had
Haagen-Dazs, right.
sandwiches
Oh,
and
that-
he
You're
had,
ready for that.
Oh.
he had all these other ideas as well. And so, and the other thing is that we all feel for the gas being changed to electric, but I'm not really quite sure it's up to the planning commission to kind of come up with this new business model for these, for the gas stations, because they're no longer doing maintenance. They're no longer, because that's being handled at the dealership, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure that, yeah.
Well, I don't know that
If we were low, I'd say whatever, add another 9, but we're not. We're high, you guys. We already have a lot of establishments that sells alcohol, and that relates to crime, hospitalizations, and all of
and
that.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Consider that. Oh,
I'm sorry, a question for do I understand correctly, BCHD is basically saying officially, this is a bad idea?
And I would say from the work of the Youth Advisory, they've done a lot of work in this area, and they're the ones who have told us that when they see it a lot, it feels normal, it feels accessible and acceptable. And so I think, speaking on behalf of the Youth Advisory, I tried to get them to come with me tonight. They're much more effective messengers in this area because they're really living this. I think they would say that group that's advocated against increased outlets, that they would be against this.
Yeah.
And I think just one more thing, if I may, just to answer some of the crime statistics. I believe, and city staff would be able to speak to this a little bit better. For calls to police and fire, I believe it is recorded if there is an alcohol-related incident. And so I believe the city might be tracking some of that already in terms of the impacts and those who might be residents or non-residents. So just to share that.
so they're not only are tracking calls that come in as to whether they're alcohol related or not, they're also asking, is this a person who lives here or a person visiting?
I'd have to
doubt they're
defer
doing
to
that.
city
I doubt they're
staff.
doing that.
Yeah.
So, but it's good to know that they're at least tracking crime related to alcohol.
Do we have any other public comments, anything?
No Zoom attendees and no further comments.
Thank you for, we may have more questions for you if that's, okay.
She's ducking out.
I'm sorry,
Don't go home.
no one on Zoom and no further e-comments on this item.
Okay. Other questions?
I just had, just real quick, again, the problem that's being looked at here is increasing the sort of bottom line for gas stations and convenience of residents on the one hand, and on the other is the potential health and safety issues, as was pointed out by Commissioner Hazeltine and Ali Stewart. Okay, so those are the two sides of the debate. I'm just wondering if, and I think you brought it up, Doug, this idea that perhaps instead of utilizing grocery/beer and alcohol, there might be another solution to help gas stations recapture some increased revenue instead of going to beer and wine. And what might those be? There have been other gas stations around the state who have experienced this very problem. I don't have the solution, but I'm just saying that we've been brought this problem to solve, and And beer and wine sales seems to be the only solution that is being brought forward. And my thinking is, before we agree to this, maybe some additional solutions should be tried by the gas stations. That,
Yeah.
Excellent.
So,
So I have about 8 questions that have been backed up for some
okay, go
time.
ahead.
You never look this way, or never remember that you did. So,
I'm sorry, Doug.
couple of comments on the on-site versus off-site difference in statistics. Of course, they're going to be different because on-site your drinkers are being supervised by a bartender or a waiter or somebody like that, and they're getting cut off at some point. So of course, there's going to be less of an incidence on that. So I don't know that comparing those two helps us much at all. I think that we also need to remember that apparently none of our gas stations actually qualify for this and are easy. It would be easy enough to just deny them. But on the other hand, if that's the case, why give up the prohibition at all?
Right.
Good question.
Let's see, I'm trying to remember all the questions now, or all the comments. So out of 9 gas stations, a third of them are in the final block on on Inglewood, between the final block south of the freeway. They're almost not even in Redondo Beach. And they're in areas where people are about to get on or just got off the freeway. Mm-hmm. So are people picking up a 6-pack or a couple bottles of wine for dinner on their way home? Probably. In the morning, they're on their way to work, and it's Friday, so of course they're going to want to be drinking. Or there's a party at work, or somebody's got a birthday or something, so they're stopping to pick something up. I think the largest group of alcohol buyers at those 3 gas stations are going to be people who know they're there and are going north or south on the freeway to some other destination, get off quickly, buy their alcohol and pork rinds, and get back on the freeway and go commit a crime in Garden Grove. So I don't know that this is the right time for us to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And Commissioner Lamb has a great point. It's not our job to figure out how these declining businesses are going to remain profitable. They should be able to figure that out themselves and come back to us and say, gosh, Doug's Mobile had a great idea. I think I want to have an Haagen-Dazs outlet in my gas station too. Well, Haagen-Dazs might only want so many in an area. So what else are you going to do? Well, what else can you sell? Collectibles. What else can you sell? Concert tickets. What else can you yoga classes? I don't know. There's a lot you can do with something that looks like a gas station structure. And a gas station structure could, frankly, completely change their business model and become a 50s style drive-in restaurant diner with car hops on roller skates. There's all kinds of ideas. The fact that we hand them the low-hanging fruit of saying, well, just sell what everybody's addicted to. Maybe that's not what we need to do now.
Good point, Doug.
Good point.
Maybe our recommendation to the city council is kick the can down the road, come back to us in 3 years.
I think that's such a big thing to lose, though, to lose that prohibition is if we had a low density of alcohol off-site places, then that would be or medium even, that would be a different consideration.
And maybe that's what we should really be talking about.
We can't get it
back. How do we get some of those licenses back?
Maybe we should not be talking about adding gas stations as liquor stores and be talking about what liquor stores probably shouldn't be liquor stores. And
different
maybe
question, of
make
course.
them be gas stations.
It is, but at the same time, I had no idea we were in the high density in the city of Redondo. I didn't know that until I started looking. Did you know
We
it
have a-
without looking?
Look at
Oh,
our
yeah.
Well, I mean, I know we have a lot of liquor stores and stuff, and CVS sells, et cetera,
look
but
at
I
our
never
population density.
thought of it as, oh, Redondo is high.
But we have such a high population density. It's about as dense as it gets in California.
Oh, that's really
And
scary.
you know
So
what?
because of that, we have high density of alcohol.
And what
sales.
happens when you squeeze people into a smaller space and then you get them drunk? It's a recipe for trouble.
Redondo's a
And then we
wonderful place
have
for
we
many,
have
many
people coming
reasons.
we have people coming to Redondo Beach for fun, and a lot of people equate fun with drinking.
So I think, do we need to close public comment?
We should, if we've gathered all the we have everything from a public comment stuff.
No one on Zoom, no
Should we,
comment.
does it, okay, I need to ask you some questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you have any questions for staff,
Yeah,
don't close it
So
yet.
if we're of a mode, just asking, of a mode to completely reject all of this and say that basically to council that getting rid of this prohibition is a really bad idea. And basically the opposite of what this resolution is. If we are in a mood to do that, what should we do?
There are a few things that you would need to do. There's the resolution there, so you would need to, recommending that the city council not adopt an ordinance. That's what's before you, right? The city council has asked you to consider this.
Right.
So that it would be the not adopting. Under the findings, I mean, it's still exempt from CEQA, so you can still find that finding. I think it's under finding number 2 that you would have to, you may want to explain why you feel that the amendments are not consistent with the general plan. So, there are these different goals where it is, but I think that you'd have to have that you want to have that finding there. 3, I think you could leave, and then under the resolution itself, section 1, that the, planning commission recommends that the city council not adopt the amendments.
Okay.
You could take out section 2 because that's what the amendments were. And then, and section, all the way through section 5. So, it's pretty quick and easy to make that change. It's what you are making for the findings of why it's not consistent with the general plan.
Well, it's the health and safety aspects. Right.
So
I think
you
you
have to be more specific.
I think you don't want to just say, well, it's against the general plan because bear in mind, both of these uses are allowed uses in Redondo Beach. So it's not going to be contrary to what the land uses are, or the definitions of land use. You would need to find, if it's the health, safety, and welfare, is there a particular goal that you find that it's contrary to, or a general statement in the general plan that you would find it?
I'm not prepared to answer that question. I mean, if I dug through it and.
So, Gail, I don't know if you wanted to weigh in on this, but the evidence, right? There is evidence here.
Right.
But I think you're asking for specific language in the general plan that this is contrary to.
Right, where this would not be
Do you
consistent.
have that specific language happen to be pulled? The only person up here who would have that pulled up right now would be you right now, I think.
Okay, so in the general plan, the statement that, I think the initial statement is that everything that, all policy, all municipal codes must be adopted for the benefit of the health and safety of the residents and then of the public, right? And then under that, we would have to ascertain, right, or stipulate why exactly we believe that it is not in the best health and safety interests of the community, and that's where
Where we would
Make
get in
reference
with
to the
increase,
statistics.
reference to statistics.
yeah, increase in hospitalizations, increase in
Motor vehicle
automobile accidents.
Per the county's,
Per county.
per the county's
Report.
document,
Mhm.
right?
And domestic
Increase in
violence.
crime.
Right.
that Redondo Beach has
A high density.
high density, which has been proven to increase.
High concentration
High
of
con-
outlets and availability, I guess.
Right.
Is the,
high
Right,
concentration of outlets.
Yeah.
I think it's moderately high levels of hospitalizations and ER, right? ER.
I think before high
admittance.
concentrations, we should say inordinately high, because we don't need it to be necessarily somebody arguing that it's a comparison, just inordinately high.
Okay.
Okay.
However, right? I think the other, just a side note here, we are surrounded by cities that are adjacent to us that are much higher than we are, right? And there's that compounding, there's that compounding kind of situation.
You're talking specifically about Hermosa.
Hermosa's high with
Hawthorne,
31.9.
Oh, really?
Gardena, very high, right? Manhattan's high.
Manhattan's high. Torrance is low.
Torrance is low.
They're not reporting. It's all rigged. In
Yeah,
terms of-
Manhattan's high. Oh, boy.
Right. So, strictly, when we're comparing these issues, right? Are we doing this to benefit the business models of 9 gas stations? Are we concerned about the health, safety, and welfare of the residents? Now, your point was, well, is not allowing 9 outlets to go forth? Is that going to make any difference? Well, it may make a difference at some point in time.
It's not going to be less.
It's
It's not going to be. Yeah, it's not going to help.
It might not be much more, but it's definitely not going to be less.
right. So I think it is in alignment. The decision itself is in alignment with the view of supporting the health and safety and welfare of the community. I think the decision
To reject this.
yes, is in alignment with that,
Right.
based on the
County statistics.
statistics, based on community input, right? That says access is a key driver for youth alcohol use.
Negative outcomes associated with alcohol. How's that? We can even make it general.
Make it general.
Are we missing
me.
anything?
You're going to have to go over like very specific, because you went over a lot of different things at one time.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I mean,
sorry.
Do you want to
it's,
pull the language up on the
I
screen?
don't have it yet,
Okay.
because I don't think I can share from this. Oh, maybe I can.
We're looking at the resolution, right?
Yeah, but she's crafting
Yeah.
basically a new
I
one
need
as
to
we
craft
speak.
the findings, and I need to be very precise and not this and kind of that and the LA County thing. I need to have like the specific language.
Okay, well,
So-
like the name, well,
so
you
hold on real quick.
you have a copy of in the blue folder of the actual report,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
Okay.
not there yet,
Okay.
and we've moved through a lot of things at once that I just want to,
Take your time. It's not going to be 1 o'clock for a long time.
it's he's not going to be 1 o'clock here for me. I know we go back and
We'll
forth on this
see.
each meeting.
We'll see.
But tonight, no.
9 o'clock.
We seem to have hit a patch of sand.
We can get this done in 15. Let's do it.
But we want it to be,
How about
it's
8
got to
minutes?
hold up, right?
Yeah,
So-
Well, I think that we're considering a lot of things that the city council
let her-
they didn't talk about
Let's
this.
everybody be
Well,
real
oh, they
quiet.
didn't.
Let her
No, they
finish
did
this.
not. You have to watch the meeting. They did not. They got kind of bogged down on homelessness, but they didn't really talk about it. And we don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's so, right, yeah, okay.
I do want to just make a note, just so that you're all aware. You can make this is, if you put this resolution forward and this is what you adopt, do bear in mind, city council could still adopt that regulation. I just want you to know
No,
that,
of
yeah.
course, we
I
understand
don't want you to
that.
like have
But
this
then-
disappointment
No,
of.
no, no. They just
But
want our
then Rob could
opinion.
appeal it, right?
They just want our opinion. That's all.
And we're saying no. I mean,
Well, maybe
we
not.
haven't voted on it yet. We haven't
Right,
voted
right.
on this, but
Okay,
I
so,
have a feeling.
So can a member of the planning commission appeal a decision by the city council?
sure, I think so.
Yeah, why not?
Go ahead.
I don't know, well, I don't know that there's
With
any
the
appealing.
stats.
You'd have to, wouldn't it
You
just,
have to do the appeal.
Well,
I don't think a decision of the city council is appealed. I think litigation would be filed.
Yeah,
Right.
but, I mean, we're just trying to present another way of looking at something.
right.
For them, I think
And I'm
that's
just giving
only
the
reason-
technical process.
I mean,
I'm not
that's the only
suggesting
reason they
anything,
have sent
yeah.
it back to us,
They've-
you know?
They've asked the question.
Yeah,
answering.
and we're answering it.
Okay, so, are you able to?
I'm going to try.
Okay.
Let's see. So, no, not that one.
Those two.
I think it only might be staff and then these up front.
Yeah, and
City
those
manager
don't,
city
and
attorney.
those don't have access to the folder that I'm working. So,
This one does, right?
yeah, you want to swap? Okay, so let me close this. No, open it there. I mean, you could certainly type it if you want, but
Let me sure go to if you have a pained look on your face.
it's very.
Well, no, I just, I see where everybody's coming from, but I just want to point out that even if we were to approve this resolution, it doesn't mean that we would ever approve a CUP for any of these gas stations, even if they would apply. It would just
True.
open up the opportunity for them to apply.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that we could say no to
Correct.
all 9 of them and like pass this and.
Sort of what we're
Well,
crafting right
still-
now.
Yeah, and
Yes.
we could, but then in 4 years, another planning commission could
Correct.
change.
Yep,
And
that's
then
true.
that's
A
an
future
issue.
planning commission.
And I
can do
think
whatever they
that
want.
that prohibition is so valuable to give up.
Because we
It's
can't get it
We
back.
can't get it
Right.
back. Once we decide we want groceries sold, that's that.
Right.
And it's really uncertain, the mechanism of, somebody is not approved because they're above the crime rate in that neighborhood. And then the next time, we don't know when that test is going to be, but there's a test where now they're in conformity.
But even if they're in conformity with both of those things, it doesn't mean we have to approve it. We can
That's a
find
good
other,
question.
we can find other reasons to deny a CUP. If the location is in a place where it doesn't meet that 1 in 1,600 whatever residents and it's under 20%
Well, let's say
crime or whatever.
let's say they conform to everything.
Yeah, but
Can we still deny it?
At that point, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
You'd have to have a preponderance of evidence.
And then
Well,
you
no,
have
I'm
to
saying
appeal to the city
preponderance of
council.
evidence favors the applicant. The
But are those
applicant
the only
is,
two are those the
applicant
only two
conforms.
circumstances under which we can
Yes,
deny
yes,
this?
I
You couldn't
think
deny
so.
it.
You wouldn't be able to deny.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think you can deny it.
I think that's so, like the point being to what Luke had mentioned was there was the one of the two things, the one was that concentration, right? That population. Well, that's on, our population is not going down per census district. Like, let's just be clear. It's only going, it's only increasing. As a matter of fact, we hit the 70,000 mark at the last census. So, just, but, so that's not, and I think that you said that when you had looked at that, all of them would just be disqualified if you use that as a ranking. So that would be the biggest, you don't have to think about the crime statistics and when did they run it? Did they run it last month? Did they run it a year ago? Because you'd already have the other component, that the census is not, those census tracts are not losing population. There's not going to be. Now, if something else moved out of that, all of a sudden all the other, outlet sales were no longer in that census tract, then maybe they could, they would be the one that would be in there. I don't know.
But would we be able, if they met those two criteria, would we be able to find other grounds to deny their CUP?
If they said, well, we're going to use 75% of it for alcohol sales, or we're going to, but the chances are they're not going to not follow the regulations.
Or just ask the question.
So to take it to an extreme, if a gas station owner is moving away from maintenance, and really sees a high profit in selling alcohol, could he not then just say, I'm no longer a gas station, I want to be a neighborhood convenience store? And then he would be applying for something entirely different, and it wouldn't fall on this, right? So if somebody is thinking that alcohol is the make or break thing, then they got to stop being a gas station, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we got
is it still a
one, the
gas
one thing,
station
like I
if
know,
they have, is it still a gas station if they have, they sell no gasoline, but they do provide car chargers?
it's a service station is what it falls
But
under.
service is the maintenance side of gas station.
No, when you look at the definition of it, it's providing fuel for the vehicle. That would be electricity for a vehicle. So I mean, again, I'm not one way or the other on this. This is also, we keep focusing on, and I know council had the same, on the alcohol, because that's the biggest concern, right? That beer and wine sales are part of this. I don't know that they're only saying, oh, we have to sell the alcohol in order to, make our business work. I think the point is, right now they can sell these individual bags of snacks. You're not going to buy an actual bag of chips. You're not going to buy, 2 liters of soda. You're not going to buy any other grocery items. You are going to buy like the snacks that are maybe not the most healthy for you. And so I just want to put that out there.
Apples?
Can.
Oh, they can. Good.
yeah.
But not a bag of apples.
Not a bag. Got it. Unless they're really hungry, because I mean that.
Well, I think that now we're going back into that grocery sales, right? So I just wanted to point that out, and I don't mean to discredit the conversation about alcohol. It's not that they're applying to be a liquor store. It's a limited percentage of the square footage that could be utilized for that. But yes, the issue and why this has been a conversation for over an hour is exactly because of the beer and wine having to be tied to it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's the law, which makes it unfortunate. I mean, wouldn't it be easy if it was just they wanted to sell groceries?
Well, it's state law. There are a lot
But
of crazy
they
state
go
laws.
together. So anyhow.
Should there be a motion on the table? Well, we'd have to close public hearing to make a motion.
I mean, do
Or
we
can we
want
craft
this
this
work
language?
I'd rather you craft the language.
Yeah, okay.
So that if there are questions, or if you have questions of me or Luke, that you can ask them.
Okay,
And
good.
so I'm just going to go through. This is the resolution with the draft changes based on what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Would be under the title, not adopt an ordinance. The rest of this is just talking about like the meetings and the discussions. The planning commission took public testimony. For the findings, it is, compliant with CEQA. So it's not finding that. You don't need to challenge every finding. It's just the finding the one not to. So this is the one. The amendments to the zoning ordinance are not consistent with the general plan. And this is where it was going in a lot of different directions with the conversation. The regulations are not in the best interest of the public health and safety as demonstrated in and I need the title of that.
And yeah, you have it as a blue folder item, so we don't really. I
Want to fill it in.
You know the name of it.
Yeah, it's called let's see, County of LA Public Health is who did it. It's Health Outcomes and Data Analysis Branch, Substance Abuse Prevention and Control.
Wait.
Sorry, I have a
Oh,
separate
wait a
one.
minute, that's not the title, hold on.
The blue folder was the alcohol outlet
Alcohol
density.
outlet density and alcohol-related
alcohol-related consequences.
consequences.
And we should probably have that's
2020.
LA City and County 2020.
Yeah.
They're saying by, it's done
Sorry
by
about that,
city
guys.
and by community, yeah.
Oops. Sorry about that.
Document dated.
So specifically,
What's the date on that?
2020.
December 2022. The data is from 2020, but the report is December 2022.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have so many smart people on this commission.
What?
It takes a village.
Who says?
Okay.
So we have a high density of off-premise alcohol outlets in the city of Redondo Beach.
Density of, say that again, off.
We have a high density of off-premise alcohol outlets in the city of Redondo Beach. And then, Brandy, how much detail do we need to put in as far as vehicle crashes, et cetera? Do you want me to actually use the terminology?
Or could we, in general, say it has a high correlation with negative
read
negative
parts.
outcomes?
Cities and communities, okay, high density of off-premises alcohol outlets were 2.1 times more likely to have high alcohol-involved vehicle crashes.
I mean, could we just do general things,
Yeah.
you know,
Comma, and then you could do a comma. And then high alcohol-related hospitalizations, comma. And a higher alcohol-related deaths.
I think, you know, I think we,
So that
it's better,
is
we're
that.
better off staying kind of general, because to the extent we have specifics in there, you know, each one, I don't know.
Well, that's general.
Okay.
That a high concentration of, the report also demonstrates that a high concentration of off-premise, hold on, alcohol outlets is correlated to a high incident of hospitalizations and alcohol-related deaths.
Is that a true statement?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm asking our expert.
Ally?
If you want to generalize it, it could just be alcohol.
Could I ask you to speak in the microphone? We're just trying to keep everything on public record
Come
here,
on.
if you don't mind.
Thank you for helping us. This is a huge job.
It's out of my realm of expertise for sure.
If you wanted to generalize that, you could, how they describe it in the report is alcohol-related consequences.
Yes, that's a
Negative
good one.
consequences.
And then,
Negative consequences.
Parentheses, I don't know if you need more detail than that.
Okay.
And the detail would be the emergency room visits, hospitalizations, and others. But I think alcohol-related consequences is kind of the umbrella of the
Term, good.
Thank you.
The incidences.
Thank you.
Incidences. Okay. And I've added additional gas station alcohol sales would impact the public health and safety. And the reason being is, we don't, that's the distinction. We don't have gas station alcohol sales. We
Right.
have the other alcohol sales. We have gas stations.
Right.
Yeah.
Could we put after the word would impact,
Negatively.
it would negatively impact
Good job.
or adversely?
Oh, I like adversely.
I like adversely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to edit your.
Okay, next, what's,
Oh, so,
Do any more than that?
so you have that, you have the what document you're utilizing. So with that, above recitals are true and correct, incorporated herein. The Planning Commission recommends that the City Council not adopt the amendments to the Redondo Beach Municipal Code pertaining to general food sales, inclusive of beer and wine at service stations. Then we just removed all the reference to that code.
that was
And
easy.
these other sections also reference that because it was talking about changes in the code and inconsistencies. So finally resolved that the Planning Commission forward a copy of the resolution of the City Council. The council will be informed of the action of the Planning Commission.
There was
Oh, and we got to change the date.
there was another block of text a little further up. That it just further up that I think was not crossed out. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Brandy, are we a month behind our schedule? You're crossing out part.
No, this was actually, this, Luke had it in his presentation. It was a quick one. They had talked about it at one meeting in February. At the next meeting, they said, we only want, at that point, they said, let's only send the inland ordinance to the planning commission. So we were ready to go. They made a different referral, so we So no, we're not. Oh no, you want another meeting? We can. No.
And you had a pretty full plate in March.
Can you move?
From what I
Hold on,
understand.
slow down. I thought there was something, maybe it went by so fast I didn't see that it was crossed out. So everything in red has already been marked out,
Yeah,
right? Okay,
correct.
okay.
Yeah, so it's basically
Got it.
section 1, planning commission recommends that the city council not adopt the amendments to the Redondo Beach Municipal Code, training to general food sales inclusive of beer and wine at service stations. And then the other was just finally resolved that it's forwarding to the resolution.
Okay.
I want to just make sure you're content with your findings, because that's the big one right here is this.
Right, or not? Yeah.
Just a little technical edit, document after consequences should not be capitalized.
Oh, excellent, thank you.
Cool. Good work.
And what did I just see? It moved. Lost my place. It's correlated to high incidence of. Okay, so at the end of that blue, correlated to a high densities, it should be correlated to high incidences. So the A has to come out to high incidences of hospitalizations and other alcohol-related
And is it incidences or incidents?
That's why it wasn't, there's multiple of them, right? High incidences.
Yeah, one we wouldn't be worried
Okay.
about.
I already,
That's
already
It's
personally went through that.
Yeah. Well, it has this.
And
And off,
other alcohol-related consequences.
and yeah, it's off premises and I think off premises.
Yeah.
REMISES.
Okay.
SES, right.
Was it?
And I think off premises should probably have a dash off because
It
it's
does have a dash, but is that important?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Was it somewhere else
and
too?
yeah, it's in that.
Under hospitalization.
Yeah, there we
Back.
go. So right there it should
Oh,
have a
good,
dash.
okay, and then
'cause
it's
a
an
compound
S.
adjective.
And then what?
Yes.
There we go. Good.
I'm on it.
Okay.
Hey.
Cool.
Okay.
Do we have any other public comment?
No one on Zoom and no
Go
e-comments.
back down to that again. Okay. To high incidences of hospitalizations and other alcohol-related consequences, other negative alcohol-related consequences.
Or alcohol-related negative consequences?
No, other negative
Okay.
alcohol-related consequences.
Okay.
Versus positive alcohol-related
Yeah. Good
Well,
buzz.
there are a lot of positive alcohol-related consequences until
we won't
that
talk
third
Until the
drink.
negative one, yeah.
Until that third drink. And then you can't tell.
Okay. Should we close public hearing?
Sure can.
Okay, motion
should
to
we?
close the public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. Okay, that passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to adopt this motion as written?
How about as revised?
Huh?
As revised.
As revised. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adopt the resolution as revised.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, let's take a roll call vote on this.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hazeltine,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley absent, Commissioner Lamb,
Yes.
and Chair Geddes.
Yes. This is approved unanimously. And so we're
Thank you, Commissioner Hazeltime, for your
Yeah.
research and work.
Thanks for the deep dive.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Great. Terrific.
okay.
And thank you, Commissioner Lamb, for your ability to keep us focused.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Or your repeated attempts to keep us focused. Let's just make a run for it.
Attempt.
All right.
Andy seconding that.
Items continued from previous agendas.
Nothing.
Items for discussion prior to action.
No discussion items.
Items from staff.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know we are in the process of making the revisions to the objective residential standards. I want to give you just kind of like what the layout of the next steps are on that. We'll release it about a week in advance of the May Planning Commission meeting. I don't want you to think, oh my God, I'm only going to have a week and I'm not going to be able to sleep because I have to read this. We're going to go through at the May meeting, we're going to go through all of the revisions that were made so that you're very clear on what was changed. We've had a few comments from the public, so we're going to also probably give some examples of, things that to clarify for them. For example, how something went from a guideline to a standard. And so we can point that out because I think that there might be confusion with that. So we want to make sure that we're really making sure people understand the document they're looking at that point. Then we're going to come back at the June meeting. We'll have the resolution that has the ordinances that would implement it so that you can make the recommendation to council on that and any recommendations that you want to make for them to revise the document. So we're not going to see 20 different versions, but that's your opportunity. So you'll have that month, work well within that month to come up with your, any recommendations that you'll want to make. If there's something that you're like, well, I think I'd like to see this clearer, and you as a body all agree to add that as a recommendation. So that's kind of what we're looking at schedule-wise. We will meet with the subcommittee to go over that draft as well, just so if there's any, that helps us because the subcommittee members, help us understand where there might be something that might be a little confusing so that when we come in June, we can make, clear some of those items up if we need to, or say, here's a recommendation that would help clear up that item. So that's the process that we're going to do for that. And then it'll move on to the city council at that point. There is the special planning commission meeting on June 1st, and that's going to be the implementation for the ACAP for the Artesia Aviation Area Corridor Area Plan. And a couple of you are familiar with it because you were on the General Plan Advisory Committee when that came through. And with that document, it's similar to what we'll need to do for the objective standards is a change in the ordinance that makes that effective. So the big thing with the ACAP are the changes from the FAR from 0.5 to 0.6. And there are a few little changes like that this will now make those effective without making a major change to the zoning code. So that's going to be coming to you in June. I will not be here for that June 1st meeting. You will be in great hands with our Waterfront Economic Development Director, Greg Kapovich, and our Planning Manager, Sean Scully. So, yes.
Just to confirm, May 18th, we'll also have the ODG, we'll have a discussion on the ODGs.
Yes.
Then on June 1st, ACAP, and June 15th is opportunity for recommendations.
Yes.
To the ODG.
Yeah, because that'll have the revisions to the zoning code that reference that applications have to comply with the objective residential standards. And in that resolution, then you can make the recommendation for the city council to consider the objective standards with whatever recommended changes you might have. So,
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
and that's I think all I've got.
Okay. Let's see, commission items and referrals to staff.
I have a question for Brandy, Planning Director Forbes,
Community Development Director.
Development Director.
Community Development Director.
Development
sorry.
Director.
Community
I'll answer to all of them.
In terms of the CUP 4 requirements, on a legal basis, do all of those have to be, is the proponent required to satisfy all 4?
Yes, so you would have to have findings that all 4 of those criteria are met. And the 4th one is adding conditions that get you there. So really it's those first 3. And you mentioned those today at the, in the first 2 items. You went through that, like here, like the findings. Yes, right.
You can see I'm focused on this.
I got it. And I got your email on this. I have been like concentrated on a couple other items. So I'm glad that you're bringing it up now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but you had mentioned before when I surprised you, right, at one meeting, you said, write me first. So when I didn't hear back from you, I said, oh, she's telling me to bring it up in the meeting.
Perfect.
So I got it.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just one other question with that. I had seen, and I think I sent it to Luke, Mr. Smoody, another municipality actually submits those conditions to the proponent and says these outlines titles the condition, explains the condition, and then says you tell us how you're going to meet this condition. And what I thought was interesting with that is that it could be a time saver.
Could.
Look at it the other way.
Right. It could be a time saver.
It could. I'll have to look at what our application has in it because our applications are checklists. Those are the things that we can require. It's really tied to our code and what our code requires. But what our code requires us to have in an application, not necessarily that our code, because our code requires those criteria.
Yes.
Doesn't necessarily require that those criteria are part of the application because it does spell out what's specifically in the application. So I'd have to look at whether or not we could require that or request it from them. So, and to be polite, they may not see it in the same way that you're going, like we make sure to make those, really look at those findings. We make sure to go through how something is meeting that. They may say it in a much more plain language or in a way that you don't feel is meeting that criteria. Doesn't mean that they don't meet the criteria.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't be just because they didn't write it, they're not wordsmithing very well, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't meet those criteria. So, just something that we could definitely ask them to. A lot of times we end up having to take even what they put in their applications and explain it a little bit more clearly in our staff reports. So
It's really just a suggestion. You're the decision maker here on all of that. But
well, you're the decision maker on that because of those criteria.
In terms of the documentation,
on it even coming to you're absolutely
the
right.
presentation to us.
How
it comes to us.
Yeah.
So but thank you for the information about the CUP on those 4 criteria.
And it's similar for other applications, not to belabor this, like planning commission design review or a variance. Each of those has its own criteria. if you went back and revisited the 100 North Catalina, for an example, you see that there are, each of the criteria are laid out for each of those types of permit, for each of the permits, because the criteria are different for each. But we then have what the finding is of how it's meeting that. So we do incorporate that into the resolution itself. And it doesn't mean that you don't, like, we found, we can find that, and we found that for that particular resolution as well, where the historic variance was not you found that it was not meeting the criteria. And you found that that conditional use permit for that one use was not meeting the criteria. So you were able to make the finding. It doesn't mean that it didn't meet all the other criteria of that particular permit application. It just didn't meet that one. And that's all it needed, was to not meet that one for that particular permit to not be issued. So anyway, that's a lot.
Right,
I'm
I think
sorry.
that was probably
a lengthy conversation.
Yeah, I think that was probably the impetus for the original, for my question.
Got it.
Is, right, how is this all working?
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Any other commission items or referrals to staff?
No.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we
I'll
have a
second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. We are unanimously adjourned.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very